last man standing, but wait a minute, maybe I do. If you don't mind, I'll start a new line and decide after thinking it through. Go on in front if you're in such a hurry, like heaven ain't waiting for you. I don't want to be the last man standing. On second thought, maybe I do.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and TV discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, he's got a good name for wallpaper, Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
It's called Code Blue.
And screw being the last man, he just wants to be the last monkey, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and you can call me the and sign.
Yeah. Or you could just call him Bruce Leslie, as that's what we all do, because we don't want to get it mixed up with any of the other stuff. And we hope that you're not too mixed up, because this is a podcast that has been percolating out, I guess we could say, for quite some time in a weird roundabout way.
Way too long. Yeah, this is a weird project that took forever to get made, and then when it was made, well, lucky us.
I gotta say, after watching these two episodes, I know why behind the scenes they were having such a difficult time with this show. It's very easy to see.
And we'll talk all about that, and of course, the podcast that never was, and what kind of went down, because a lot of stuff went down in those long many times. But before we do all that, we do want to say a big thank you to the people that support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Those awesome people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. Doesn't matter what level that you support us at. And this, I told you last week, and sure as shooting, I'm a man of my word. I am back to talk about all of the top donators over at Patreon this week. Of course, coming in again at that icon level, we got Tim the Longhauler coming in at 45. Sir Slick Derrick the Night Bard at 40, and our good buddy Matt Schnapp at 40 as well. And, of course, the executive producer level, can't forget about those guys, Alex, Brian, Jessica, Maria, and Nate. Thank you, guys. And, of course, everyone that comes in at the most ever popular $5 level, you guys kind of are the backbone that keeps all of this stuff going. So, we all give a lot of money to all of these big, giant corporations all the time. Give it back to the little people every now and then. We all give $5 for a month. It's not too shabby. And you help keep this show around. We really appreciate that, and all of you fine people. And, of course, in accordance with those Patreon memberships and everything, is the right to vote on a movie that we get to watch every month. Normally we do it towards the end of the month, but because we got Dune coming up on the horizon, get it? Dune, Horizon? All right. We've got...
still the king, Portress. You're still the king, baby.
We got a couple of things for you to vote on, so our Patreon vote will be starting as you're hearing this right now, and we'll run through, we'll call it Wednesday night, probably Thursday morning, and we'll tally all these up, and we'll watch the winner and talk about it on next week's show. Here are the movies. Most of these are available on Tubi, save for, I think, one. So we have Super Bob from on Tubi, and that's Roy Kent stars as Super Bob, I would imagine. Sean, is that the case?
He's here. He's there. He's bloody everywhere. Roy Kent.
Indeed.
Roy Kent.
Rendell is back on the chopping block
Hell yeah,
again.
baby. Come on.
That is Rendell, not Grendel. We've had some confusion last month with that one. Just to be sure, they are different things. But
yes.
This one's, is it Russian?
I don't remember.
I
just remember
Scandinavian or maybe.
Oh, it is. It's Scandinavian.
Yeah.
That's right. Because it's one of those things where it was like, what is this? I'm in.
This is, and speaking of what is this, we got Avengers Grimm as well, which I'm going to only imagine is Grimm fairy tales told as through the eyes of the Avengers. Is that correct?
I think it's an asylum film. Yeah, it was like a mockbuster.
Oh,
thing.
Well, there you go.
That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I don't know that that's the word I'd use.
I bet you Antonio Sabato Jr.'s in there somewhere. I haven't even looked. I'm guessing.
If they have about $18,000 to rub together, he might be. We also have up on the block here Ultraman X Man-Thing, and those are all available on Tubi, I believe. And the only one that is not is The Walking Dead, the last episode of Season 6 and the first episode of Season 7. That is the kind of introduction to Negan art, as I'm to understand, right, Bruce?
Oh, yeah.
So all of those things will be available up for you to vote on as you're listening to this now. And if you're listening to it now before Thursday, please jump on in, get your vote in, help support this show, get yourself some extra content in the meantime. We'd really like to, again, just thank all those people. It makes our days. It really, really does. And if you can't do that, the least you can do is share this show with a friend or review us on iTunes and give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
This one comes to us from Puck Princess. It's 5 stars, and it's entitled, My Husband Made Me Review This. And it reads as follows. According to my husband, this is the next best podcast to his own, How We Sees It. That's with 3 E's in there, everybody, and a Z. But he really thinks yours is better. He just has to say that. He tells me it's a blend of great humor and great knowledge on all of the shows that he loves to watch. Never gets old. It should be so much. So much so that he spends his husband allowance to be a Patreon member and even more episodes to listen to. Something about a dinger zone. Sounds dirty to me. Well, I got to tell you, Puck Princess, it's not quite as dirty as you think, except for sometimes. But you never know. And you know how you find out? Patreon.com/HMP. Join up today and get all the cool, fun perks and whatnot that goes along with it. Let's get into it, boys. Here is the trailer for Why the Last Man.
Mr. President, you're...
I'm fine.
Come on, guys. This is a man's world. This is a man's world. But it would be nothing without a woman or a girl.
Madam President, power plants will start to shut down.
Which city? All of them.
Somewhere is the answer to how this all happened and how we fix it.
Who are you?
Yorick.
You're reproductively interesting.
Wow. Okay.
People are gonna have to pick sides. They are hungry. Angry. Terrified. We will rebuild together.
A woman or a girl.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Why the Last Man. You know what time it is.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do we got?
Written by Brian K Vaughn, art by Pia Guerrera. It was published by Karen Berger at Vertigo Comics when Vertigo was the place to be. Why the Last Man was one of Brian K Vaughn's 2 big hits, with, of course, the other being Image Comics' Saga. Now, the title, Why the Last Man, is kind of clever because the Y refers to Yorick, the titular character, if you will, but it also refers to the Y chromosome. Because in this story, everything that has a Y chromosome dies, except for Yorick. And I think, is the monkey a guy too? Is ampersand male?
Yeah, ampersand's a male.
That's what I thought. So that's, maybe that's a hint as to what's behind all this. But anyway, so it's not just human guys or human Ys, if you prefer, but Ys of the entire animal kingdom to show you just how serious the threat to life is in this world. Now, the name Yorick, of course, comes from the famous Shakespearean play Hamlet and the famous but oft misquoted line, Yorick, alas, I knew him. But for some reason, people like to add well to the end of that, don't they?
They want to have a buddy.
But this this is a comic that is many, many people's favorite comic. And if you haven't read the comic, but you've seen the show, it's a more than singular kind of experience. There's a lot of value to be found in the comic that you may not be getting from Hulu. And with that, I'll say, Adam, Do you have a list?
I do, because if that comic connection wasn't enough for you, let me say you guys on the first 2 episodes of this new FX series, because FX Hulu, by the way, series. So it's like it's FX, but it's only available on Hulu, which is an interesting way to go about business. But okay, here we go. This sucker's got everything. We got a post-apocalyptic world, a monkey. Apparently they can drop F-bombs on FX, I suppose. Magic camp, bad nails, phone etiquette, bomb making, bomb exploding, spray paint tagging, throat gashing, face bleeding, hair chopping, ambulance rocking, car chases, plane crashes, wild horses rioting, hope beyond hope that all bad kid acting isn't dead. I'm so excited about that. Those kids were terrible. Semicolon controversies, magician integrity. Our lead actor will have you asking, what if Owen Wilson and Luke Wilson had a baby? An unsettling score, rats, rabid dogs, and Diane Lane is in this thing, for heaven's sake. This show has everything.
Agreed.
Sean,
Diane Lane.
Yeah, I mean, hey, come for the Diane Lane, stay for the little monkey. Sean, Why the Last Man I Know is one of your all-time books, yeah?
It is. And, unlike Bruce with the wizard in Scotland, what's his name again? Alan Moore. Unlike Bruce's love for Alan Moore, I love Brian K. Vaughn. Bruce brought it up at the top of the show that, he's made Saga. He made Why the Last Man. He also created The Runaways, which is one of my secret treasure books, because that book was great. And the first season of that show is great. Anything after that, not so much. But the first season is pretty watchable and pretty fun to watch, actually. And we've reviewed it here on the show. I was about to say,
if you go back to the archives, you can probably find all those episodes.
But there's also the other thing that Brian K. Vaughn has wrote, which is The Great Machine, is the name of the TV show or movie that they're trying to produce now. And it's based on his series Ex Machina, which is another amazing, amazing book. However, Why the Last Man is in my opinion, his best story. I absolutely loved it. It was at a time I was reading that book at a time where I wasn't reading anything else. It was literally just that I was reading at one point. And it is a book basically about relationships, but the backdrop is the world is ending. And it's kind of great because Yorick isn't one of those guys who is your typical leading man. And so you have to have someone interesting if you're going to make a live version of the show. And we'll get into that later, because he's so complicated in the book. I don't want to get into it too much for people who want to keep watching this show, but let's be honest, this show is not going to have a huge fan base, I don't believe.
Which is sad, because we expected such great things, just based on the source material.
Right. And I think I've said to you guys in the past, Why the Last Man is my second favorite comic book of all time. Preacher being number 1, Why the Last Man being number 2. And so to have it be this, it speaks well of Diane Lane that every time she's on screen, you have to watch the show again. But every time she is not on screen, you don't have to. And, your two mains are basically Yorick, Agent 355. Is that right?
I think so.
And the president, his mom, and somewhat his sister. But three of those 4 castings are fairly not great to me in the show. And if you don't like the characters, why would you continue to watch the show?
I'll tell you some casting. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were at a pause. I apologize.
Well, I thought that I left us at a bad spot to keep talking. So I was going to say one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Which is that, Diane Lane is amazing on the show. Diane Lane is amazing in everything she does, even in Superman. Like she's just doing a great job, even though what she had to deal with was almost nothing. And she was still terrific in those movies. But the rest of the cast is kind of vanilla and kind of, why am I watching this? I mean, there's a reason why I was watching it, but if I didn't have to watch the second episode, I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I was definitely not thrilled with the first one, but there is another actor in addition to Diane Lane that I really like, and I'm trying to look up her name so that I give it correctly. But it is the here it is. Her name is Jess Salguero is the actor's name. She plays Flores, like the chief of staff to Diane Lane's character, the president. I kind of like her.
Ponytail girl? I mean, that's what I'm calling her because they didn't say the names very well in the show.
Yeah, she does not have a ponytail. So you're thinking of the ex-presidents. I'm talking about the darker-skinned young woman who was in Letterkenny.
I think I
know who you mean. I know.
Yeah, she was in Letterkenny, so she was a little recognizable to me, and I kind of like her too. But 2 episodes in, I don't even know how long she sticks around. Apparently, she was in Orphan Black, which I haven't watched, but
that's
like
Bruce. I think you will love that show, Bruce.
And she was in The Expanse. It's got its own following.
I've read all the books, so I don't want to watch the show. And
they needed to X-Files this show up a little bit and start saying people's names,
Yes. And Adam, I'm wondering if you're talking about David Cross's wife, the redhead.
Yes, that's who he's talking about.
Yeah, I called her Ponytail because, again, we're not saying names a whole bunch, and I'm just like, I know that she sort of works for the president, kind of, and this sort of, like, it just wasn't. I think that's my biggest problem is that we just didn't set out with these characters a whole bunch, and that can be a show thing that I know that a lot of shows have tried, which is like, oh, we'll just kind of reveal the mystery to you as things go on and you find out more about who those characters are. And that works great if you've got a very deft hand at it. And I don't know that this feels like it's got that in there just yet.
Well, it doesn't because, it's basically a prestige television show, but it's behaving like something lesser than because there's tells like the helicopter that's at the edge of the building in the opening scene. Immediately, the second you see it, you're like, well, that's going to fall. Yeah. There's no other reason for it to be there. And when you look at shows like, I'm not a fan of The Walking Dead. They lost me pretty early on that show. But when you see the tank on that show, there is, they're going to end up using it, but the way they use it is pretty spectacular, and it's smart, and it's a great nod. Whereas there's only one thing that bloody helicopter is going to do, and that's fall. And so
they project it to you 8 times of just like, look at it. Here's a top shot. Here's a bottom shot. It's standing there, and we're going to put a monkey under it. And it's the first time in all of, existence as humans as we've known it, that an animal doesn't sense something's coming towards them and move. It is in their DNA, my dudes. Come on.
It's pretty heavy-handed, and for a show that should be a lot smarter, that it's really dumb. Like, for instance, here's another example. So, you have a character like Yorick, and when the way that Pia Guerra drew his apartment is that it's messy. Like, yes, it's eclectic like it is on the show, but it's also really messy. And it's kind of a shorthand to let the audience know this guy's life is a mess. He's such a mess. His house is disgusting. Like, it's a very easy thing to do. They don't do that on this show because, God forbid, their very, very pretty set looks ugly. But, you're dealing with the end of days, and you're dealing with a very messy character. Write some shorthand for your audience, everybody. Like, it's such an easy layup. It takes no time. But I can guarantee you that someone high up was like, oh, there's no. He would not have a messy room. Oh, really? Have you actually read the source material at all? Because he is a train wreck of a human being when this book starts.
They start out with a little bit of that just as far as personality and stuff goes, but they choose to tell us it more than show us it.
Right. And that's another problem with this show is that it's not smart enough to know that. And so when I'm watching the show, within 15 minutes, I I was going to give them a pass for the first episode because we know how difficult it was to get this thing off the ground.
Yeah.
And so I was going to give them a pass on the first episode. But the fact of the matter is the second episode is just as damn stupid as the first episode is. And it's a shame because they've got really excellent source material and they've got some really talented people on the show and they're not using them to their abilities. And it sucks.
And I'm also going to complain a little bit that by the end of the second episode, they're still not really in the story yet.
That was another
as someone
question.
who's read the comics, I feel like they are still not in the story yet at the end of episode 2, which is just inexcusable unless you're WandaVision.
Yeah, so that was my kind. Then it's fine.
Are you going after me right now?
No.
No, I know.
I'm not doing it.
No, it's just a happy coincidence.
Hey, there you go. Who knew?
And I also went into it. I'm trying to think cautiously. Is that the right word? I mean, I went in very cautiously just because what a big deal it was in 2018 when it's like, we're going to start shooting in 6 weeks. Then like 3 weeks later, oh, we've replaced everybody but Diane Lane. Right. Like I still don't have any idea what happened. And they, Imogene Poots left, the guy from American Animals left, and then they're suddenly replacing them all with people I hadn't heard of. And like I say, I don't know what happened. Timothy Hutton, I think, was supposed to be in this cast, but I do not know what happened there. But that also made me think, okay, something sketchy's going on to lose all your cast 3 weeks before you're supposed to start shooting.
And let people know that like how long this show's been gestating. It was even before that because when we were doing the first season of Preachers when we first heard about this. Yeah. And we were like, dude, that's going to be our next project is going to be a Why the Last Man show. And then, cut to 6 years later?
Yeah, 2018 is when it was supposed to really get started for principal photography. So 3 years later, but still.
It's just.
And let me tell you something. FX took a bath on this show.
They had to have. I mean, to not even think it was good enough for FXX. I mean, just because it looks like a lot of money has been spent not only to make it, but to we know how long development was.
Yeah.
And then this is just dumping the show, right? I mean, this is like when Disney dumped that Hellstrom show. Like they knew we just want to get this out there and be done with it because that is what this is. There's no way there's a season 2 of an FX produced show that they don't show on FX.
Well, it's even more than that, Bruce, because when you have actors like Barry from American Animals, the kid from American Animals, and like your Timothy Huttons and people like that on a show,
and Imogene Poots.
Those folks are pay or play.
Yeah.
So you literally paid all of those people for something that they never even worked on. I mean, that is a whole lot of money.
That is the kind of business you want to be in. Somebody just pay you not to do the job that they paid you for. You're just like, hey, you're getting money no matter what. Oh, what a dream.
I would love to know what the heck happened there. And I imagine there's like a kill fee. Like they're not paying them as much as had they worked, but they're still getting paid a kill fee.
Get something.
Well, sure.
I don't know what kind of budget cuts come up where you got to pay the kill fee and then hire somebody that they will make 12 episodes cheaper than and play a kill fee cheaper than if you just made it with these high profile, excellent actors.
It's not cheap though. I mean, it's basically,
I know.
Yeah, it's still a whole lot of money. I mean, I'm going to guess that they probably dumped $2 million worth of money on cast that was never on a show.
Pre everything that the turnaround, and then you add all
and,
the other.
And something tells me that either the biggest kill fee or the most ironclad contract had to be Diane Lane because she's the only one that hung around.
Well, she probably also wanted to just play the damn president. I mean, how often does a lady get to play that role?
And it's in a very unique and interesting circumstance for a president to be in. And honestly, this is where I kind of come in because I'm aware of the material. It's one of those things that you always saw in Wizard, every month way back when. So I was aware of it. I was aware of the idea and everything, but never really read the book. So as far as I am concerned, all of this is pretty much brand new to me. I know the stakes, but by the end of episode 2, I'm already kind of like, oh, this is exactly what I figured things were going on. So that's what I want to ask you guys is in comparison and stuff, how does the book line up? Because this felt very kind of prequel-ish-y to me. How is it narratively done in the books?
Well, it's a lot different because you learn about the beginning of this in flashbacks.
Yes.
Like it's not a linear story by any means. It starts with him on the road. And Bruce, I know that you know this already, but like most of the book is people walking. Because people trying to get from one place to the next. There is no walking on this show.
There's a lot of walking in Sweet Tooth.
And I would say, Adam, a good point of reference for people who aren't familiar with Y the Last Man, but it's kind of like the Walking Dead structure. Like the apocalypse has happened, and anything you learn about from before, you learn by people either remembering back or talking about it after the fact. But imagine if you took 2 episodes of The Walking Dead before your first zombie showed up. That's kind of how this is feeling.
Yes, it really does feel like that.
Yeah,
and the comic isn't that way, which is, I mean, there's no, I won't say nobody because Brian K. Vaughn was a great writer, so he probably could have done a better job than this. But could you imagine if it was the 3rd month, issue 3 of the comic, Sean, before the comic got started?
I never would have stuck around.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it seems like it seems like what used to happen to comic book movies. Remember where you like, oh man, they're making a whomever movie. Like, I'm trying to think of something that came out before Blade came out. Like, let's say the Flash TV show, right? Mm-hmm. So I know that that's a beloved property at this point, and everybody loves John Wesley Shipp now, as they should. But the Flash TV show was so mishandled because basically they wanted to make a Batman TV show and didn't have Batman. Yeah. So they used the Flash.
Exactly. I mean, so much so that we're ripping Danny Elfman music and stuff. You know what I mean? They're like, no, we're not hiding the ball on this. We really wish this was Batman, but God, we got the Flash. So there you go.
Right.
That's also how we got Arrow, is they wanted like a Nolan-esque Batman show without Batman. So we got Arrow.
So that's kind of what this feels like to me, is that they were like, we really want The Walking Dead, but we can't have zombies because that's not what this thing is. So let's make it as much like The Walking Dead without zombies as we can possibly make it, which is not what the book is in any way.
And you definitely know the source material far better than I do, Sean. And I know we kind of see Yorick a little bit differently, you and I, but at the end of the day, like, Yorick is kind of a loser and kind of an underachiever, but you don't hate the guy.
No,
right? Like, you still kind of pull for him.
Not
but
at all. Right.
This Ben Schnetzer version of Yorick, I hate this guy.
Well, because he's doing
the character.
They're doing the same. No, and the actor. Just admit it freely.
Dear sir.
I unsubscribe you. The thing about the way that he's portrayed on this show is that he is a bit full of himself for no reason. And that is not who the character in the book is in any way. And so you pull for Yorick, even though he isn't even pulling for himself.
And like, I'm going to say that this actor they've cast as Yorick might just be he's a little too sultry or something. Like, he's got a little too much sexual energy.
He's handsome. You look at that guy and you're just like, that guy's got it together because he's good looking. You know,
and do you remember back in I'd say 10 years ago when they were first talking about a Y the Last Man movie rather than a TV show? Do you remember who everybody thought would be a good Yorick?
Yeah, it was the kid from Transformers.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf was there. And
I'm not necessarily a Shia LaBeouf fan, but I get it because he has that Yorick energy where you believe he's a loser when you look at him, but he's not obnoxious on screen.
Well, he wasn't at one point.
And now this guy, though, man, it's like this guy is really seems like the kind of guy that wants to get through life by being eye candy for a hardworking lady.
Yes.
And I just do not like this Yorick. And then also part of the charm of Yorick is you're the last man on earth and he's just like a Marty McFly every guy, where this guy, like,
he is naked and he is just ripped, dude. He's like,
he could be down to the last 1,000 guys and he's still getting all the girls.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
He had no problem with ladies before the collapse of society. I mean,
and that's part of the fun. Like, there is fun in Y the Last Man. There's humor.
Yes.
There's stuff to laugh about. Some of the jokes probably don't hold up under the modern lens. Time has changed since that came out. But part of the fun of it is he's the last man on Earth. So theoretically, he could be the breeding stock. But he is obsessed with this one woman who's the only woman on Earth who's not interested. Like, that was a lot of the fun with it for me.
The funniest gag in the first couple issues that they don't have in the show at all, and it's what really attracted me to the book in the first place, is that Yorick and the monkey sort of kind of hate each other. Like, they're not best friends. He's not super protective of Ampersand. Like, they both. The monkey hates Yorick as much as Yorick hates the monkey, really.
Oh, I just found out they had to recast Barry and Imogene Poots because the monkey hated both of them. It turns out it was Ben Schnetzer's monkey, so that's how he got the job.
Boy, that animal wrangler sure is handsome. Let's throw him in there.
He actually damaged Timothy Hutton's nostril when they were shooting the first episode.
It's one of those things where it's surprising and it's fun, and that's sort of Brian K Vaughn's gift, is that out of the gate, first issue, he grabs you with something that makes you go, oh, this is a little different than the things that we're used to reading, and he's done it every time with every single one of his properties. Even something like, there's a really great Doctor Strange mini that he wrote.
Oh, I remember that.
A bunch of years ago now, that in my opinion was the best Doctor Strange story for many, many, many years. And it's because it's surprising. And that's what surprised me about Why the Last Man, is that you see this monkey, you think the monkey is going to be kind of like the duck on Friends or whatever. And it's and it's not. Like the two, they live together and they sort of kind of hate each other. And that, to me, it was such a grab. It so grabbed me. I was like, oh, this is something else, And
something,
none of that is here.
Something with Brian K Vaughn that I like in his writing is, like, I see the story and I feel like I kind of know where it's going, and the story does go there, but I'm like, oh, it took an alternate route though. Mm-hmm. Like it goes where it needs to go, and you kind of feel it going, but he finds a way to get there that I wouldn't have thought of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it's not really a twist, but it's like, oh, so that's how you're going to get from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. I like that. Like,
do you, man, I you know what? I don't really want to get into the book so much because we're going to spoil it. Like, there's a twist that happens in like around the third trade of the books where you're like, oh, that's why everything's been happening with this character.
The monkey has been dead all along.
No, I mean, it's really like, it's so biting that it's like, oh, holy cow. Like that now everything is lining up and making sense, because in the first couple of storylines, it's kind of like, why is this character behaving the way that he is? Like, he's always putting himself in danger. You find out why around the third trade of like the third story arc of these books. And it's like, it's such a twister. And they, not only is it revealed, but it gets fixed. And so that is what the entire third arc is just fixing the problem. And it is so different than anything I had read in a comic book up until that point, that it was just great. It was so fun to read. I couldn't wait for the next issue. It was so fun.
Now, with the comic or the show, Sean, were you ever bothered by the kind of like Stan Lee, what a small world phenomenon, that like the only guy to survive also happens to be the president's son?
Yeah, there's a lot of raise that for me.
But the way that they describe it in the book is that she is like the 22nd person in line.
She's like the Secretary of Agriculture, I think.
Yes.
It's like something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that part is great.
I feel like they could have played her down a little bit more at the beginning. Then that might have helped smooth that idea out for me. At least.
And my memory sometimes is way off on this, but weren't they from like Ohio and not New York?
Yes, they're not from proper New York. Although he does live there at the beginning of the series.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like remember. Some of the details are fuzzy because the last time I read any Why the Last Man was the last time you and I talked about it on a podcast.
Right. And
It's been many years.
it was so long ago that I believe I was married.
You were, yes.
That's how long ago it was. But it's part of the storyline that they're thrown to the four corners of the country. Yeah. Because they have to come together. It's not, oh, we're all in the same place. Okay, see you at the party. Bye.
And I know you don't want to move the story too fast, but considering how long the source material is and how you can't count on a second season on anything in TV, I think by the second episode, he needed to be like where the women's Shakespeare troupe is. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I think that's about where it should have been by episode 2, and they're nowhere near that.
Not even remotely.
And like even in episode 2, you only start to vaguely get the idea that and maybe it's just one of those things there where you just don't state it and we're all just supposed to understand, much like the characters probably don't understand it and don't talk about it at this point. But they never really address the just men dying at this point.
I think they're still strangely like not figuring it out.
Yeah,
like it's weird. It seems like it should be pretty obvious at this point.
Especially at some point we're in a couple of months in.
We haven't even gotten to the premise of the show yet.
Yes.
We're going into the third episode. We don't even have the premise ironed out yet.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing where I know exactly what's going on, but I wonder if somebody just checked it out because they don't know exactly what The Last Man is. I think in episode 2, that there's a character who's worried about testosterone because I'm assuming it's a trans male. Yeah, well, I'm assuming it's a trans male, but I really think they cast a cis male in that role. I'm not sure.
Looked like it to me. Looked like a dude.
Yeah, so I'm like, I could see somebody watching and not even understand that men are dying. And you know what? It might be a trans man that's in that role. I don't know, but I really wasn't sure. And
I don't know either.
Yeah, and it would be kind of weird in 2021 to cast a cis man as a trans man. But
I just had to like
things have happened.
I had to like put the pieces together here at first because I'm just like, have they not got all the dudes yet? I'm like, but they seem to got everybody. But it's like it was not addressed as well as it could have been.
And I don't know if I'm right or wrong about this one, Sean, but I don't think they really addressed trans men and trans women much in the comic.
No, they totally do. It's a big storyline, like in the middle of the story. And I'll be honest with you, when those storylines came out, I mean, it was a pretty taboo subject. It wasn't something where like it was I don't know how to say this without offending someone. I'm not trying to, but I'm just going to say the words, which has been normalized. You know, like it hadn't been normalized at the point of those stories had come out. And it really was sort of, it was another surprise twist from Brian K Vaughn, where it was like, oh, geez, I hadn't even thought of that. But of course there's going to be transgender people in the world, and those people are going to be, ridiculed in this world.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say I think your word choice was excellent there, Sean. I think you worded that wonderfully. Yes.
If we can, because I mean we're dumping all over this thing. What did you like about it besides Diane Lane? Is there anything?
I kind of liked with the Agent 355 or whatever her name is. Mm-hmm. I liked in the beginning, this is something that I think is added. I don't know that it's in the source material when she's like acting like she's building a bomb, but she actually blows up the white supremacists.
Yes.
Like that, I thought was a nice little turn, a nice little touch. I thought it gave me a little more appreciation for that character. I like that character's introduction in the show, probably better than in the comics. It is.
It's a far better intro to 355.
Well, and in fact, it took me a moment to even catch on what was going on there because it was such a good introduction to it. I didn't immediately realize, oh, this is that character.
To give you an example, Adam, of how much deeper the source material is. When you first meet 355, she explains to someone, not directly to the reader, but to another character, that she's part of the Culper ring, and the Culper ring is this ring that was, and I've since looked this up, Bruce, since we had the conversation about the show.
Yes.
That Washington's ring, that George Washington literally made a secret police called the Culper ring that was, like 5 or 6 people that basically worked like spies. And so where Brian K Vaughn did his research on this, I'm not entirely sure, but he had it. Like this was a real thing. And
I didn't know that.
And the only thing that he did was, he fictionalized it where they kept going, where there's a ring of people that work just for the president.
And I'm going to go ahead and correct something I had speculated on earlier, but Elliot Fletcher is a trans male that plays the trans male. So good. I just thought it would be odd. I thought it'd be odd in 2021 to not cast that appropriately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I did not know for sure if it was cast appropriately.
It also makes sense though that somebody who has so successfully transitioned is also on television. Like it kind of makes sense. It's like you do put the most beautiful people on TV. So
yes,
it makes sense.
He's worked quite a bit. Looks like he was on Shameless. Looks like he was on The Foster. He was on an MTV show called Faking It. So yeah, he's worked quite a bit.
What about you? What I was going to say, what about you, Adam? What's something that you think was successful?
I liked the kind of the pivotal scene when everybody goes out, kind of starts. We see it start with the president and everything. We've gotten a couple of hints that things are starting to happen just before all of it. But once everybody's kind of gone out and they go into these great like wide angle camera lenses that are like right up in people's faces with the, bouquet in the background and everything to really kind of give that sense of panic and everything. And in, kind of a post-apocalyptic rapture-esque kind of idea where like, half the people are gone and they're all specifically male in this reason. I don't know. I thought it worked really well for what they were trying to accomplish here. And like it, while I think that there are finer points that certainly could have been ironed out to make it, better in various, ways. I liked it. I thought it brought the right kind of dread and like what's going on to all of this that I felt very realistic.
And I think it looks good. I think it's well lit and well shot.
Yeah, it does. The people who worked on the show, and having done the Stallone Connection this week, I can tell you that it is 99% ladies who are in charge of the show.
Yeah, that's something I was looking at when the all the credits come through and everything, and that's certainly something. And but at the same time too, also knowing a little bit about kind of the story of the show, I was also like, there's a lot of other dude actors in this. I'm like, oh, okay, so I guess we're gonna go a little bit in the backwards and forwards for everything here, but it feels like at this point, they'll probably still be going mostly narratively forward in this.
They have to.
Hope. Yeah.
Good Lord, they have to. They cannot keep.
I mean, it's only 6 episodes. I don't see any way we get a season 2.
No.
And at the end of episode 2, the story hasn't started. They've only got 4 episodes left. They got to move forward, or else they just are spiking the football on the 2-yard line when they're down by 5 points and they're not even going to try.
It's the arrow. Keep going back to the raft. Oh Lord, we're back at the raft again.
There's only 6 episodes for the entire season.
That's what I'm seeing listed is 6 episodes.
Huh,
man.
Boy, that feels like a they're like, we've got to spend this money somehow, otherwise we're going to get in trouble. I don't know.
Turns out Imogene Poots wanted at least 12 episodes. That's why she left.
I thought I was going to be working double. But I thought that was fun. I thought Diane Lane was
I apologize. Now I'm seeing 10 episodes listed. So even the website's giving me inconsistent information.
It's a little better.
It looks like 10 episodes, not 6.
10 makes more sense. 6, I was just like, boy, they're really trying to dump this if they only
and
6
the writing credit for the first 2 episodes is the same person who the last episode has the writing credit for. So I'm going to say like Eliza Clark's probably the main writer here.
Yeah.
But she doesn't write any of the middle ones, so maybe they'll move a little bit now.
One of the things that I really liked about it was the casting of Hero Brown. Yorick's sister,
Uh-huh.
because what a great idea to hire Juno's best friend. And because it's one of those things where I'm watching the first episode and I'm just like, who is this person? I know this person. Who is this? And finally I had to look it up. And, I mean, how old is the movie Juno at this point? It's almost 10 years old, probably.
At least 10,
It's 14 years old, 2007.
14? Really? There you go.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, we're old.
And so yesterday.
I know. And so to see her in this role, it's kind of a coup because you know her, you just don't know where you know her from, and she's pretty good.
She's Judge Anderson in Dredd.
Uh-huh.
So we've covered her before.
Yeah, we sure have. I wonder if we knew it was her then.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I think she had like a blonde wig or something for that one, didn't she?
Well, she couldn't possibly be Juno's best friend. She's blonde.
I work
and this is in the future.
Yeah.
There were no weird motorbikes in the future. I don't buy this crap. Not for 1 second. Send it back, please. But yeah, overall, like maybe it is me coming from the not knowing the source material super well, but only vaguely familiar enough to where I don't feel like anything is missing per se, I guess. I think that's my biggest, because I didn't hate this, but I certainly wasn't bowled over enough by it, but it has enough of a little bit of a just a wrap for me, because I kind of want to see where they're going with it, because I can't tell at this point. And like you said, we haven't even gotten into kind of the proper idea of the story just yet. So I'm like, part of me wants to see how and if they can actually pull it off properly.
So you're going to watch all 10 episodes?
I mean, I'll go until I get bored, and I'm trying to watch some stuff and everything now, because we've all talked about it. But I'll keep up until I get bored, and if I get bored, I'll stop, because it's there's so much stuff on. I mean, I watched 2 episodes of Ted Lasso today. You know what? I'm feeling great.
HMPers, I'm going to let you know he's just lied to you right there.
I said, hey,
he's never going to watch another episode of this.
I could at least watch. All I got to do is watch at least 2 minutes, or if some like Nielsen now is doing. If you watch something, it's not Nielsen, it's whatever's kind of replacing that. If you watch anything greater than 0.0 seconds of something, that counts. Can you believe that crap? It's unbelievable.
That is crazy.
It's like, oh, so you viewed it a month? That counts as a view. Boy, we are, because apparently the Nielsen was not giving the numbers that everyone kind of wanted them to give, so they've been kind of delisted and kicked to the curb and stuff, so they're out.
Oh, guys, I'm upset. I just saw the title of episode 6. The reason I thought there were 6 episodes is there's only 6 episodes out at this moment, and then there's 4 more left to come out. It wraps on November 1st. But the most recent episode is titled "Weird Al is Dead," so I'm out. I am not watching episode 6.
I don't want to live in a world where that's a true thing. No, thank you, please.
Yeah,
Weird Al takes better care of himself than we do. He's going to outlive all 3 of us.
That's true.
Yeah.
Mr. Vegan here for God knows how many years. He still looks the same that he did in 1988.
How can a guy who sings about food so much be vegan?
It's really strange, isn't it? Got a lot of songs about pork chops and God knows what else, and sure shooting. Anything else that, like, what would get you to, for this show to do it for you? What's it kind of missing? What would be the secret ingredient, at least as far as from what we've seen in these 2 episodes, that would course correct if that's indeed at all possible at this point?
Is it okay if I go first? Because I think your answer is going to be more relevant. Okay. But for me, I would say just a little something to make the lead seem empathetic, just some reason for me to pull for Yorick, and then also a little bit of humor. I think that, like I said, when they meet the women's Shakespeare group, Brian K. Vaughn put some humor in there, and I think we could use a little humor here. I'll yield to you now, Sean.
Sorry, I cut you off there. For me, there's 2 major things. One is that you've got to surprise me. And this show is so by the numbers unsurprising Like every beat, is going to happen. Where you're kind of waiting for it and waiting for it. So that's one. Surprise me. Two is you've got to pick up the pace here. Like the pace of this show is molasses. You can go do something else and come back and you've missed nothing. That's a problem. And if I liked the character of Yorick more on the show, I would totally watch it. But as I have learned from watching Preacher, if it ain't the thing you like, stop watching it. And so that's where I'm at. I'm done watching the show, unless somebody whose opinion I trust says, "Hey, they turned it around." I'll be like, "Oh, sweet, I'll start watching it again." But I can't imagine that happening.
Gets into one of those shows is just like, listen, by season 3, it gets super good. You just have to truck through 2 seasons of bullcrap, and then you're into the good stuff. Why not?
Well, I mean, there are 2 shows like that are, in the nerdy Valhalla of television shows, which is The Simpsons and Buffy. I mean, those are 2 shows where they turn it around, and that's not to say they can't do it here. It's just highly unlikely.
One little note that I had about this show that I kind of was really astounded by is I've worked in a standard size ambulance, and if this ambulance that, like, when the 2 characters had their little fight and she accidentally kills him, which I thought was like a really kind of like, oh, this is cool. She killed him off, and then all the males died, so she can kind of fall under the radar with that. So I feel like that might be an interesting place for that character to end up going, just carrying the guilt of all of that sort of stuff. But having worked in an ambulance, if this is a set, it is the best ambulance interior I have ever seen. I have been in this ambulance, and this is but I think it's real. I think it's real, and if it is real, he is super short because man, oh man, you cannot stand up fully in that thing if you're like over 5'4". It's
okay,
unreal.
So you just buried the most interesting part of that story, Adam.
Yes, I did.
Why were you working in an ambulance?
So when I taught high school broadcast journalism, one of my jobs was to take the students and do a multicam live-to-tape recording of sporting events and political events and all that kind of thing. So we'd have 3 or 4 cameras out. We'd put a student on each one of those, and I would direct from the inside of this converted ambulance. At first, we had an RV which looked like Sanford and Son-esque. And that eventually broke down when we learned that the gas doesn't work anymore. And it just, you could just be driving all of a sudden. And I did one night. I was just driving and then, boop, nothing. Stranded on the side of the road in the middle of Podunk, South Carolina. Scary. But then, we got an ambulance. And that is the exact layout of everything in that ambulance. And it is so accurate that it makes me go like, that's got to be an actual ambulance and not a set, because it is so deathly accurate to what the inside of that thing looks like.
This is like an onion, man. The layers keep getting deeper. Everyone. Adam was a high school teacher.
Yeah, for about a year.
Wow.
I was only about 4 or 5 years older than all the kids too, which
and
was
all
like
it
kind of
took was 2 slow-paced episodes of a beloved comic book to get us to talk about that.
And what's funny, that it's like they sat me down when they decided to let me go, and they were just like, listen, this is not really working out. I was just like, really? Because I was about to ask you for more money. They're like, more money? You're lucky to get what we got you in the first place. And I'm like, well, I guess we're at an impasse here, then, aren't we? So then I had left. I got paid through the summer, which was nice, but it was not paid much. So yes, I taught high school for a hot second. And what's really weird too is that I actually I had to go up to, like, our building was separate from the main building of the high school. We had like what was formerly a band room that they just turned into the studio. And I went back up to the main school there for a meeting once, and one of the teachers in there was a teacher of mine from the 8th grade.
Wow.
And she freaked out. She was just, what are you doing here? I go, I teach at this school now. And she was just like, no, this isn't right. This is the kid that sat and talked to me during lunch and stuff. And I was like, I didn't talk with the kids. I sat and talked with the teachers because I found them much more engaging. I'm sorry. That's too much for me. Before we rate this thing, what?
I just got to say, I would have loved to have been at that meeting that Adam walked in prepared to ask for a raise, and the principal walked in prepared to fire him. Like that had to be a fun meeting.
It's good times. What can I say? The more things change, the more they stay the same, I suppose. Before we rate this bad boy, we got to ask ourselves how this long overdue television series relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Good evening, Mr. Stallone. It's Sweet Chauncey again, and tonight I'd like to talk to you about the concept of range. Range is usually brought up a lot when people talk about weaponry and acting, but it can be used for a variety of different reasons. For instance, William Milton Marsden, the man who created both Wonder Woman and the lie detector. That's range. Or Hedy Lamarr, who was a smoke show of an actress and also created torpedo guidance systems. Range. Or Betty Nesmith, who created Liquid Whiteout and Mike Nesmith from the Monkees. Range.
Wow.
And today, Mr. Stallone, I want to talk about someone else with range. Casting director Marjorie Simpkin. She is one of 3 casting directors on Y: The Last Man, and that lady has totally got some range. For We're Up to Nerds, every bit of IP would be cast with Nathan Fillion and Carl Urban. Oh, you're making a new Lethal Weapon? What about Nathan Fillion and Carl Urban? What's that you say? You're making a new Abbott and Costello movie? Nathan Fillion and Carl Urban. A new Designing Women, Fillion and Urban. But Marjorie Simpkin knows better because she's been there. Now listen to these credits. Avatar, Little Shop of Horrors, Aaron Brockovich, Pacific Rim, the original Footloose, Triple X State of the Union, Brazil, Beverly Hills Cop, Top Gun, and your movie, the very poorly titled Daylight. We've spoken about Daylight before, Mr. Stallone. Hell, we've talked about every one of your movies on this show. But for the unfamiliar, you made Daylight in 1996. It performed fairly well, and I've learned a few bits of trivia about that film. The director of Daylight, Rob Cohen, wanted Nicolas Cage to play the main role instead of you, but producers thought Nick Cage was too much of a character actor. You said that you were getting too old for action movies and that Daylight would be your last. Well, that was in 1996. And you have a superhero movie coming out next year called Samaritan. I don't know if you remember, but before taking the role of Daylight, you were set to star in a movie called High Roller, which was described as Die Hard in a casino. You were supposed to play an ex-hitman who had to save a casino owner's daughter. The script sold for $1 million, and Savoy Pictures, who bought the script, refused to give you the $20 million you were asking for, so you agreed to star in Daylight instead. Savoy Pictures went bankrupt less than a year later, probably because they did things like buy scripts like Die Hard in a Casino for $1 million. I saw the movie Daylight when it came out, and I remember it being one of those movies where the character got fired from his job because he cared too much. And Sly, I don't know casting director Marjorie Simpkin. I don't know how much she cares about the work, but she does come in and get the job done when it's needed. Hiring Juno's best friend to play Yorick's sister in Y: The Last Man is pretty brilliant casting. And there it is, Mr. Stallone. This week's Stallone connection is Marjorie Simpkin. I'll do better next week. Hope to hear from you soon. Your pal, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
Man, Marjorie killing it with that IMDb. Holy moly. I like it, man. Anybody that can just do that kind of wild and crazy stuff on one side and the other and just can keep doing it for what sounds like, 30 years plus.
Yeah,
point.
At least, man. I mean, she's been doing it since the 80s.
Good for her. All right, let's get down to it. Here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on down to our subreddit, reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast, right there at the top of the screen. Bruce, where do the first 2 episodes of Y: The Last Man on Hulu/FX or FX Hulu? I don't know who gets the top billing in that one. Where's that fall in the Robin rating system for you?
It's not great. If they don't want to do a direct comic book adaptation, I can understand that. Maybe it is a little dated. Maybe the creators want to take it their own way. But, they made a great Watchmen show that really went its own way from the comic books. And if they were going to try to aim for something apocalyptic, I think it should be a little less Walking Dead and a little more Leftovers. But once again, you still need Damon Lindelof for either one of those options. And there clearly is not a Damon Lindelof on this show. So sadly, it's just in the doldrums. It's like it's out in that part of the ocean where there's no wind to carry the sails. And it's just kind of Stephanie Browning around. It's shot too well for me to consider it a Jason Todd. There are little peaks in the acting. I like that one interesting part in the introduction to Agent 355, but still it's kind of like a Stephanie Brown. By this time next week, I won't quite remember what happened in these first 2 episodes.
Sean, what do you got?
This is Jason Todd for me. I hate it. I hate this. I hate what they've done to my beloved property.
Look what they've done to my boy.
My boy. This show is a stone cold bummer. I wish it were never made. I wish that I would like to have that thing that we used to have as nerds, which was wouldn't it be great if they made this thing instead of crap, they made this thing.
Yeah.
And that's what this is for me. It's a Jason Todd all the way.
I'm just going, I'm right here in the middle. I'm going to do Damian Wayne just because, again, I'm not super familiar with the material enough that it really kind of, spoils or degrades anything for me. I think it makes it a little bit fresher. I wasn't super crazy about how long they've kind of taken, or at least the route that they've taken to get to the point where they've at within these 2 episodes. But I think I understand at least where their logic is at. I'll watch an episode or 2 more. If it starts to catch, I'll catch. If not, then we'll just kind of write it off. But yeah, for middle of the road for me at this point. But I think that only comes due to my lack of knowledge. And I think if somebody doesn't really have any of that backstory, perhaps they might like it a little bit more. And of course, with us actually telling you what the basic plot of the actual story is that the television show doesn't do a super good job on, maybe they'll enjoy it more that way. I don't know. That will do it for this episode of Here Movie Podcast. We'll talk about what we're doing in just a moment next week. But in the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Hey, go check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie. Hopefully, I'm going to have to scramble. I'm going to be working late tonight, but hopefully I'm going to have a video up about the first all-new episode of Demon Slayer that was released today, the first since the Mugen Train movie. Ooh. It's a prequel of Rengoku getting to the train station, and hopefully I'll have that up sometime before the end of business on Monday.
That's interesting. So we've because I never really got. I watched like the first 2 episodes of the actual anime, and of course I watched the movie itself. So we've never seen his kind of backstory or anything previous to that.
Yeah, they took the movie and they've divided it up into episodes with some new art added. And the first episode in the Mugen Train arc is going to be entirely new. It's going to be how Rengoku got to the train station, because if you recall, Adam, we just followed Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Tanjiro getting onto the train and being chased.
Yeah, my favorite part of that
and
is
Rengoku was there going, tasty.
Yeah,
tasty.
I was going to say that English translation where he's just going, tasty, and not blinking. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Sean, what else?
30Q. Anything 30Q in your podcatcher, that's us. Check
Why the Last Man 30Q?
No, thankfully. Man, can you imagine me just complaining
we dodged
for 10 episodes? Yeah. My gosh.
Oh, man. We had the name of the podcast and everything, anybody. Why the Last Pod? We had, like, the Facebook group was made up. It was all, we were ready to go years and years ago. And perhaps we've dodged a bullet on all that. And so, yeah, do all that stuff. And we'll see you back here next week when we'll be talking about our Patreon Select Force. Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the internet. Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
A monkey's life.